And a good morning to you. Lanny Ford Remembered along with you here this morning. For some reason, I got a little ringing in my ear. Must have just a touch of tinnitus.
It's the ringing from my ears that's making it to yours.
I guess.
Yeah.
I've got that ring this morning for some reason. I don't know why. Good morning to you. I got 59 degrees. First morning this year that I did not come out with a jacket of some sort. I can kind of make it if it's in the 50s and we don't have wind. So we'll get the day started. I guess Juju and I talked last night a little about the draft, and you and I will delve into it just a little bit further.
Good.
Before we get to the surprising and not surprising stories, I guess that's the way you would look at it, or storylines that develop from the draft. First thing is, Stephen Lowe asked this question when we were on last night, and I'll ask you, who do you think may had the best draft as far as how much it helped their team to be better? What would you say?
That's a good one. There's been talk of 2 or 3 teams that just really, really did well. I kind of think the Bucks had a good draft. Actually, a great draft. Steelers had a really good one.
Yeah, Juju said the same thing.
Yeah.
I still have to see it put together on the field. That's what I'm waiting to see. I thought the Houston Texans had a good draft based on where they were last year.
Maybe the best. That may be the best one.
And I guess when you look at it, you're looking at teams that after this draft, barring injury, who do you look for to have the most improvement?
Probably Chargers.
Well, but that's not just draft. That's Harbaugh too.
Well, the most improvement, I think, is the holistic part. But I think the draft, you could tell it was Jim Harbaugh.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's kind of like setting the tone and the standard. But, I think you'll see the most improvement, through that team. Yeah, because of Harbaugh, but because of the way he's implementing his pieces, into the process he wants to have.
Now, the other thing that I heard was that a lot of people liked what the Cardinals did.
Yeah, I think they're going to move on from Murray.
I think it's a do or die year for Murray.
Yeah, it's a die year.
And I have never been that impressed. Now, they did take the number one receiver. My understanding is he hasn't signed yet. A little unusual. But then they took an edge rusher. That was their 2 first-round picks. They took a corner. They took a running back out of Florida State. Yep. Offensive tackle, tight end, another corner. That's in the first 3 rounds. Then in the 4th round, they took a safety, an edge rusher in the 5th. They took another offensive tackle in the 5th. And they took a wide receiver in the 6th and a corner in the 7th.
I think the tackle they got later in the round, was he not like from Texas Tech
yes,
or
Texas
or something? Yeah.
Texas. The first one they got was from Illinois, and the second one was from Texas.
There was some. I think each year there's really good linemen, right? But there was some very noticeable players in this draft that are probably going to be ready to play.
I agree.
This year. And, there's always going to be rookie mistakes and these kind of, the game's a lot faster, but a couple of these guys that went are they're ready. Like they are like future Hall of Fame ready. That's how impactful these guys could be.
I think the most improved division based on where they were last year to this year is the NFC North. With the Bears, the Lions, the Packers, and the Vikings, all of them have some positive things going on. Of course, the Bears got the number 1 pick, but Detroit and the Packers and the Vikings, and a lot of folks are thinking there'll be 3 teams come out of that division going into the playoffs.
Probably because the NFC South is so bad.
It is so bad.
So it automatically gives you another one. The one thing that I didn't see really enhanced a lot were the Giants.
No.
I didn't see a real pickup there. I like a couple of the. I mean, obviously, like the guys they drafted, they got probably arguably the best receiver. Yeah, the neighbor's kid is pretty good. Isn't that who they picked up?
Yep.
First,
Malik.
yeah, he's pretty good. But the thing about it is, I don't know, man.
They had 6 picks. They had 6 picks. They got a receiver in the first, a safety in the second, a corner in the third, tight end in the fourth, running back in the fifth, and a linebacker in the sixth.
Probably the most shocking one was what they're saying on TV was the pick of Penix. And I hope for him it works out. But to spend, I mean that's draft. I mean, how do you? I'm still. I'm kind of kind of. I am puzzled.
Mm-hmm.
This is looking at the grand scheme of things and what your needs are. You only had 81 sacks last year. You were the last in NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You signed Kirk Cousins for $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well, let's stop
money.
right there. Based on where he's at, okay, Cousins.
Yeah.
Coming off the injury.
Yeah.
That was a little risky investment, was it not?
No, because
you don't think so?
No, and
Okay.
the reason I say that is because the body will heal itself through the surgeries and things like that. It may take a little longer because he is older, but those type of surgeries have a very high success rate with all the rehab and it's $100 million investment. So you bet he's going to have the best medical care 24/7. With his body, he's not just going out playing pickup basketball.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Smoking cigarettes, like all the stuff, right? So. I get, and it was a very good point that you had brought up before we got on the air about, well, maybe things aren't moving along as well, and that's why they did this. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think it's the reason that they all feared Bill Belichick coming in because we got rid of the whole front office because of stuff like this. And again, I hope it works out. But what did a national championship game what did it indicate to you?
Mm-hmm.
He's 24 years old. He's battled through tons of injuries and come back, and believe me, knee surgery's been there, done that. I mean, it's not easy, especially if you're coming back to play at and compete at a high level. But this it still is so. I just think anytime you do something, then you immediately have to start defending it. That it wasn't the right thing to do.
I agree. And
they immediately started defending it.
It's like you are second guessing what you did immediately.
Or you're trying to convince yourself through talking about it, through other people asking questions. Let me tell you this. It's like this, Lenny. If you know something is true, then it doesn't matter what other people say or do because you know it's the truth. It's only when you're trying to hide something do you try to stop it. Or do you try to get out in front of it and say, wait, this is why we did it. It works that way in sports world. It works that way in the real life. It works that way in politics.
It's funny.
Right?
It's funny.
So if things are true, then, you don't go around trying to defend it, what you've done or try to stop, there's absolutely no mistake about why they didn't want Belichick to come in because they wouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. There's a reason when and I think it's only with mortgages or second mortgages, that type of thing. I know with mortgages, you have a 3-day rescission period. You sign, but it doesn't become official for 3 days. You got 3 days to change your mind. Mm-hmm. You wonder sometimes if something like the draft was, if they had an opportunity to rethink it, because I know that you've been planning this draft for a long time, but you get inside that 10-minute window.
It's tough.
And you got to make a decision, and you wonder, would they second guess it if they had time to think about it more?
Well, the reasons for justification of doing something like that, and there's been so much talk the last several days. The shows, the NFL shows, whether it be on ESPN, NFL Network, Fox Sports, whatever, have all questioned why you would do this. And there's been some that have said, well, this is why, and we think it's a good move. And others have been like, what in the world is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like wash, rinse, repeat. It's the whole thing with Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel like you are better today and 2 years down the road by getting rid of Justin Fields, who's had a couple of years in the NFL, okay? How do you feel you are better today with Caleb Williams than you are with Justin Fields? How? How does that make you better?
Oh,
what are we like? What in the world is going on? How do you in this argument? And now the pundits are coming around to the Belichick thing, saying, "Well, wait a minute. You had a chance to get Bill Belichick. You go out and hire another guy that's had head coach experience before. He's a good dude, Raheem Morris.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he is. He's a great guy. He's a good leader of men. But you had a chance to hire Belichick." And then the first thing somebody says, well, he's 70-some years old.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 70 is, the new 50. Okay. Think about what people looked like when we were kids that were 50 years old. They looked 85 or 90 today.
Yep.
None of this makes any sense. As long as the cognitive functioning ability is there, then the age thing, you got to have the energy like Saban talks about. Yeah, it eventually comes in, but that's okay. But I don't see that with him. He's still engaged. He still does things, and here we are. And I'm not revisiting, well, they should have done this, should have done. My point is, stuff like this doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm. Nope. I agree.
And you're going to have somebody come in and say, and rightfully so, well, he never did anything without Brady. Okay, two things. Number one, that is ludicrous. Okay? Number two, he learned from Bill Parcells, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. And they had a rift, and he learned tremendous amounts from that on how he wanted to do things. He probably learned more at Cleveland in a massive landslide the other way that was just set up for failure to start off with than he did before, coming into New England and winning championships. Mm-hmm. You learn before you start winning. That's how you win.
Richie Jr., good morning. Richie said CBS, their report card on the draft ranks Washington with an A+. I think they did help themselves a lot. Then Arizona, Kansas City, Rams, and Steelers all got A's. Now, I'm going to ask you about this one because here again, you got an if in there. The Carolina Panthers took what on a lot of analyst boards was the number one running back in the draft. They got him in the second round. And they're going to need somebody, And do you like that pick and what Dan Morgan's trying to do as far as – because the thing he's got to do more than anything, he's got to come up with some way to creatively work and see if Bryce Young is going to work based on other elements of the offense.
Yeah, well, Bryce Young is going to work. The Jonathan Brooks kid, the kid that came out of
Texas.
Yeah, I mean, you won't find a more prepared runner. The one thing about Steve Sarkisian is this. He over-prepares. All right, and what I mean by that is that not in a bad way, but simulation-wise and the things that they've got now, the way they can do things, but they can learn how to cut, to see the cut before they put their foot in the ground, through simulation now, these simulation boards, and actual player movement, being able to – look at angles, cutbacks, all these things. And what Brooks is going to be able to do is he's not going to be able to run the football. He's going to be able to catch the ball out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Which is going to become more and more popular.
Which goes back to one of the best players the Carolina Panthers ever have that they traded away, which I'm still okay that they did that because they did him a solid, was Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, they had to. They didn't have a choice. He wasn't going to be able to stay on the field with the way that he was being used there. And yeah, that's okay too. Sometimes – you have to remember, sometimes having a great player doesn't necessarily work out for what you're trying to do or just the factors that surround it, okay? McCaffrey plays for 49ers, much better chance of staying healthy, staying on the field.
Right.
Plays with the Panthers, still a dynamic, great player, but he's not on the field a lot. And that's just the way it is. You have to have great players around you. And Lanny, when you're evaluating players, you have to look at them. There's two ways they can go. When I'm talking about really, really good players, great players. All right, number one, great players on this side. These great players play really, really well with great players around them.
Correct.
Okay, they stay healthy. They really are productive. Then when the team's not so good, how good is that great player? Do they overextend? Do they try to do too much? Do you try to do too much with them? Are they productive with maybe not such great players around them?
Doesn't that come to the evaluation side too? When you look at players, when players come out of Alabama and LSU and Ohio State and Clemson, those players have a different environment that they're in that they maybe aren't going to have, because it's always been said places like LSU, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, quarterbacks are playing with top-notch receivers and protection that probably don't have as good of tools when they get to the NFL because of,
comparable.
Yes.
Comparable to what the defenses are
which
going
is exactly what
against.
you're talking about. When you do the analysis, it's hard to evaluate a player when you've only seen him in a certain environment.
That's correct.
To me.
And that's a really good point. That's kind of where I'm going. And so personal life experience with this, my sophomore, junior in high school, I've got great players around me. I'm playing at a really high level, playing much better than I probably am. Senior year comes around. These guys have all graduated. We got a bunch of young guys that come in. I'm trying to go out there and lead, do all these things, and I'm just struggling because I'm trying to make up for all the stuff that we had the year before and do what I do. Level of play goes way down. Overextension of, trying to grab every, resource possible or every trick in the book to try to get a win or to try to get a play done, right? No matter what the sport, football, basketball, and baseball is all three that year.
How important?
And it's really tough. It's tough.
How important is it for an NFL team to take a quarterback that not only plays well with great players around him, but a quarterback who can elevate other players, a Peyton Manning,
right,
a Tom Brady,
Drew Brees.
Okay, they took people.
Matthew Stafford is the best example because of how hard he played. To your point, at Detroit.
Yes,
and guess who saw it? McVay. He said, God, this guy comes here. Look, and he's right.
Right. To me, that's I think availability and staying on the field is number one. But number two is you've got to have a quarterback that can play well if they don't have the best surroundings, if they don't have the best environment. Now, some do it better than others. Yeah. Cam Newton did it not the way you want traditionally an NFL quarterback to do it, because he did it with his legs.
Right.
Michael Vick did it. He did it with his legs. I mean, and you see Lamar Jackson doing it, but you wonder how long can that hold out? The body can only take so much. Let me do this.
How many Super Bowls do those three guys have?
Peyton had 2.
No.
Oh.
The ones you were just
Lamar?
talking about. No, just the ones that used their legs.
Oh, yeah, none.
So the point is, it doesn't take
That's
away
what I said. You can't.
How great and what a wonderful talent and how awesome it was to be able to see that as a fan. But in the end goal is about the Super Bowl and not just getting there, but being that champion, right? So where what are we looking at? Kaepernick was the same way. He could run, and his arm was pretty strong. Maybe not the most accurate, but it was still strong. But just being the two-dimensional type player.
The threat of that two-dimensional player is what you need to utilize and what needs to make the difference, not that second dimension of running in the quarterback position, but the threat of running to keep defenses honest, I think.
And no, you're right. And to your point, which I think is an excellent point, the defensive ends, the rush ends, the outside linebackers, our edge rushers have everything to do with putting the clamps on that philosophy.
That's right.
And until we go back to motor grader football, from tight end to tackle, notice I didn't say tackle to tackle, tight end to tackle, to eliminate some of these guys like the Micah Parsons, who are incredibly athletic. But when you put a fullback against them, or a big boy pulling and kicking out, that don't work out too well.
The other side of that is, if you've got, if you can utilize a double tight end set, you have spread out those ends more, and if you can make hay inside the tackles with the 2 tight end set, those edge rushers become neutralized.
And your safeties have to come down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Guess what happens now?
That's right. That's right.
You got bigger people.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you break from your tight end set to your spread set. Then you have your hybrid tight ends like your Kelce's and your Kittles,
Yep.
where they really can't be covered by a smaller.
Right, Gronk.
Gronk because of separation, and they can actually run.
I got a thought about the Panthers
So we'll
when
see.
we come back. Let me take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to give you a little breakdown on where these players came from in the draft, as far as schools, which schools are putting them out there, and then another position with the Carolina Panthers that may be part of why they're struggling. Back in a moment.
Whether it's a sit-down meal or a call-in for the drive-thru, Brookwood Cafe and Catering is the answer. A variety of meats, vegetables, and desserts cooked daily, or a hot sandwich from the grill, they have what you're looking for to satisfy your taste buds. If you need catering from 5 to 500, Brookwood has you covered as well. Stop by Brookwood Cafe and Catering at 202 Providence Mill Road in Maiden. Don't forget breakfast daily till 11 a.m. Open Tuesday 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., Wednesday through Saturday 6 a.m. till 8 p.m., and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Call 828-428-8944 to place your order today.
If you ask around, you'll find Burke Mortuary has a reputation for excellence and commitment to value. They've built a reputation of trust for more than 35 years. Burke Mortuary is proud to offer personal attention, meaningful tributes, and the area's most affordable prices. They're also proud to offer you beautiful, state-of-the-art facilities. It's the perfect place to honor your loved one. So when choosing a funeral home, the choice is easy. Choose Burke Mortuary with locations in Maiden and Newton.
Covenant Church began as a vision of just over 100 people in 1984. Since then, Covenant Church has grown and currently located at 2168 Gastonia Highway in Lincoln. The Sunday schedule includes early morning worship at 8:30, Sunday school at 9:45, and morning worship at 10:45. Their ministries extend beyond Sunday. Visit their website at www.covenantchurch.church to see all they have to offer, and better yet, stop by and see for yourself. Covenant Church may be just what you're looking for a new church home. First Federal Savings Bank has been serving Lincoln County since 1940. And as it has been from the beginning, customer service is a priority to First Federal Savings Bank. They want to get to know you by name. First Federal Savings Bank has the convenience, the products, and the services that the larger banks have, but with hometown people that you see throughout your community. Stop in and visit one of their 4 convenient locations and see what First Federal Savings Bank has to offer you. Member FDIC, an equal housing lender.
Untangling your headphones, finding the right remote, saying goodbye to your favorite shirt that hasn't fit in 10 years. Why are simple things sometimes so complicated? Thankfully, with Auto Owners, insurance doesn't have to be one of them. Auto Owners works with independent agents who live in your community and answer when you call, so you can worry about more important things, like finding a new favorite shirt. That's simple human sense.
Call Mooney Insurance in Maiden or East Lincoln Insurance in Denver, or visit mooneyinsurance.com. At Stifel Nicholas, we're committed to offering investors personalized investment guidance. We're a full-service organization with department staffed with professionals that specialize in a wide range of investment opportunities, from the most conservative to the most aggressive. We strive to give each account, regardless of size, careful, individual attention. Call Fort Rembert today at 828-624-7300. Stifel Nicholas, member SIPC and the New York Stock Exchange. And welcome back. Glad to have you here on a Tuesday morning. Maybe some thunderstorms later on this afternoon, about a 30% chance. Typical spring weather, I guess you would say. I was going to give you colleges this year's draft, and this brings up a point that you said earlier. Michigan had the most players selected in this year's draft. 13.
Yeah.
And then the second one with 11, Texas.
Sarkisian, yeah.
Then with 10 players was Alabama, Florida State, Washington.
That makes sense.
Number 8, Georgia. The number of 8 were Georgia, Oregon, Penn State. 7 players from Notre Dame and Southern Cal. 6 players. Now this is 7 players each from those schools now. 6 players from Clemson, LSU, Missouri, 5 from Auburn and Utah. I guess the point that I'm making is when you look at this, these are the teams that were tremendously successful the entire season. Michigan, Texas, Alabama, Florida State, Washington, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State, all of those teams. Now, the other thing that I find unusual, and I saw this popped up yesterday, did you know that the Carolina Panthers have never taken a Clemson player in their history, ever, on draft? They've traded for some, but never drafted a Carolina Panther. Kind of stunning, isn't it?
That's, yeah.
Never drafted a Carolina
the last
Panther.
10 years, all those kids that come out of Clemson that were great players, or say 10 years, last however long. That's, wow.
Yeah. A lot of folks didn't realize that, and then what makes it funny is that's where Clemson started playing, and it's not like Clemson has not been successful.
Oh, right. That's
now there have been some players. There have been some players that have come out of Carolina that have been drafted by the Carolina Panthers. Of course, the most notable is Julius Peppers going to the Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah.
But I just think that that's a little funny.
Well, you would think, closer to home, that kind of thing, but I guess not.
But, it's one of those things. I just thought that was an odd stat that I saw yesterday. But this stat doesn't surprise me at all with how many players have been pulled from the top teams that are out there. The other one I think is a little funny when you look at it. North Carolina is way down the list. They had 3 players with Arizona, Duke, Kansas State, Mississippi State, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
That was a little unusual. Tell me, do you like the pick of Drake May to New England?
100%.
Okay.
It's a great pick.
Why?
Because he has everything that they want. He's 21 years old. His timeline is it's exponential.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, his learning curve is off the chart. He's got a set of brothers that have been, great players, national champions of their own. He knows how to handle these things. He's been around it his whole life. He's, been raised very well. He's very stable. To me, he's everything that you look for in a franchise-type player to be a leader. It's much like, and I'm not comparing him to Brady, but in that regard, the way Brady carries himself. Mm-hmm. It's much that way. Does he have that edge like him? I don't know. I mean, we didn't know Brady had that edge until everybody started doing is Tom Brady for real? After a couple of Super Bowls, nobody knew his drive because it wasn't anything to talk about. Mm-hmm. He was getting passed over at Michigan. Every chance they got, they tried to put Drew Henson in the game, right? For him. I think the 2 guys that are going to come out of this the best are Bo Nix and Drake May. I'm concerned about Williams. Just from being the number 1 pick, how that works out a lot of times, and just some of the things that have gone on. I look at the style versus substance issue. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of substance there. I see a tremendous amount of style there too. I don't know which one's more important. I think in today's world, the bottom line is you're in business. But when you draft somebody, you have to ask, are they in business or are they going to be a football player? Mm-hmm. And I think when you look at why Brady's the greatest of all time, it's because he's a football player first. His substance created its own style.
Right.
And I think that's kind of like Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that these people are the best at what they do. Now, again, I'm not comparing anybody in this draft to either one of those kind of talents, but what I'm saying is Bo Nix brings everything from a stability standpoint, a lot like Drew Brees in many, many ways. He's got the he's got the pedigree. He's got he's traveled from being at Auburn, obviously going to Oregon. He's seen things on both sides of the country as far as defenses and ideas, and he's a coach's kid anyway. I just like these 2.
Your big talking heads, when they rank these quarterbacks, okay, looking at them from the draft, Caleb Williams, number 1 across the board, Jaden Daniels, and Drake May kind of switched on different analysts, so I think they got that right. Number 4 on most of the boards were J.J. McCarthy. And then Bo Nix and Penix were split on the number 5 position. If the Atlanta Falcons had not done the long-term big money contract for Kirk Cousins, would you have been all right with that pick?
No, they should have. They should have even traded up to get Drake May. And the thing about it is, you look at Ritter, and they throw all the blame on him. The bottom line is this: they had 81 sacks last year. It's the lowest in the NFL. That's their problem.
Well, they were in the bottom 5 of defense total. Period.
Yeah. So why you go? The thing is, if you're trying to improve your team, then you have to improve it with base hits and not trying to hit the grand slam,
right,
because they struck out instead of hitting the grand slam, I think. And I hope, again, I want these guys to be successful. I'm not downing them as people. I'm saying, based on what we've all seen, based on what we've watched, and remember, these are the same analysts and pundits that said Jamarcus Russell was hands down the best talent, and he may have been. But it never translated to the field because of the speed of the game.
Right.
And, I don't know anything about how he did IQ test-wise. I'm sure it was really high. He was a great college player, all these things. But, Laney, what did they say early in the year? Well, this is not a year where a lot of quarterbacks are in the draft. Was it
this 14? This was a heavy quarterback.
No, but they were saying that last fall. Like, well, there's really nobody that's coming out other than Caleb Williams that we can do. That is absolutely absurd, because each year players grow through their experiences, how they handle things. They continue to grow. Hopefully it's up, they grow upwards instead of, broadening out. But in the end, this shows you how desperate the league is for offense.
Well, when you talk about
this shows you 15 players were drafted offensively before defensive guys taken.
Yeah.
And you had several teams that were dog crap on defense, and they still took offensive guys. The reason they're changing the kickoff, in my opinion, is not because of the safety and security of our players. I'm not listening to that crap. It's football.
Yeah.
Okay? It's a high collision, high intense sport, and you're going to get your head racked. You can't go out there and put flags on. Okay? The reason they're doing kickoff the way they're doing it, they've got to improve how much further out the offense gets the ball so to lead to more scoring, because they can't score.
Right. When you look at New England and they took Drake May, he's number 2 on the depth chart right now behind Jacoby Brissett. What should the Patriots do? Do they play him early,
or no,
they let him sit back and learn?
No, they put him and the boy from Tennessee, the Milton kid. Is that who it is?
Joe Milton.
Didn't they take him?
Yep.
They put him
4.
and Milton over here, and they're like, all right, guys, you're going to get some reps with the first and second team every now and then, but what you are doing is you are learning how to play NFL football. Who is it?
Bailey Zappi.
Yes, you got him and
Jacoby Brissett is your starter. Yeah.
Perfect guys to be your 1 and 2.
But so many franchises get impatient, fan bases get impatient because you took him so high in the draft. But the smart thing to do, because I don't think Drake May's going to lead them to the playoffs this year. I don't think Jacoby Brissett's going to lead them to the playoffs. It's about development right now, because they were in such bad shape. They had to do something.
Well,
they've got to develop and let it evolve on its own.
You're 100% right, and I really think when Belichick was trying to first time to go ahead and get Brady out the door so he could take the franchise to the next stage, and that got zapped. It kind of quashed everything around it, and it's hard to rebuild from that the way contracts are structured. You have all these things you have to keep in mind. So it's not just going out and getting the best players. It's getting what you can fall under, what you can afford based off what you're trying to do. It's not like the Yankees where you just come in and pay a luxury tax, you get all the best players, and you try to go win a World Series, right? I mean, that to me that sounds a lot like travel, sports,
right?
Where
that's
right.
Right.
You have all these great kids playing on one team, you go wax everybody, and you're like, well, look how good we are. I don't know.
You look at Washington. Washington took Jaden Daniels, and the reason I think they got Jaden Daniels as their starter, they have Marcus Mariota, Jeff Driscoll, Jake Fromm. Jaden Daniels, the reason I think he can start right away, he played basically an NFL-style offense at LSU. He's a little more prepared than Drake May.
He's going to get killed.
No, I didn't say he wasn't.
I'm going to tell you why.
But they don't have anybody else there.
And I like him. He's obviously a great kid, a great young man, very good leader. But the reason it worked both ways in college, the reason he got 3,000 yards rushing because he could throw it for 12,000, and the reason he got 12,000 yards passing is because he could rush for 3,000. That ain't going to work. At the next level. All right, that ain't happening. Okay, we can talk about, boy, he's so quick out of the pocket and does this. He is going to die if he's out there scouting around like that. Okay, he's got to get rid of the ball, which he will learn these things. But there's so much difference in the speed of the game. And again, everything is skewed towards the offense. All the offense has to do is get a couple tight ends out there and start moving north and south instead of everything east and west, or slinging for the home run, the grand slam every play. You want to fix scoring in NFL, start attacking the defense is not built to stop a run.
Right.
But you know what? It's not exciting. And, oh, did you see that catch? Well, did you see this guy just truck this other guy coming through for an extra 4 yards? And, and he doesn't know. I mean, it just – I don't know. Yeah.
When I look at the South, the NFC South, looking at last year's standings, Tampa Bay and the Saints went 9-8, Falcons went 7-10, Panthers went 2-15. Now, I'm going to hold my opinion on the Panthers till I see a little bit more. Of those teams, based on the draft, who's going to have the biggest impact and make a move in that division?
The Saints.
The Saints are.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Saints will, and I think the Bucs will be right there with them. The Falcons are going to finish dead last. Carolina's going to be a surprising second or third this year.
That's what everybody said last year.
They have nowhere to go but up. And last year that was unfair because it was all about the number one pick. When we know the learning curve of number one, Bryce Young handled himself incredibly
based on what he had to work with.
He handled himself incredibly, and he threw a lot of really good balls in tight windows that were dropped. One thing we don't look back at is some of the plays that he made, the way he stood in the pocket and took it a little extra, for trying to make that team a little better. He could have done some things to save himself and thrown some balls away. He tried to make plays, and that's why I think they'll be better. I think the 49ers, I really think that the Rams might take them over this year, just based off of – things are not going to be the same. I really think, too, that with the firing of Steve Wilkes, I was out in California a couple weeks ago, and I talked to some people out there, and they're real excited about making the Super Bowl. But I asked one question. I said, okay, guys living in we were in Dana Point, which is just south of L.A. or whatever, about 45 minutes south. But there's a guy from San Francisco that was at our meeting, and I asked him, I said, okay. I said, trivia question, bro. He's like, what's that, man? I said, you win the Super Bowl with Steve Wilkes still your defensive coordinator? Well, yeah. I said, what are we talking about here? What are we talking about? He's like, well, but we didn't win. I said, no. Hold on. You scored 13 points. You held Patrick Mahomes to 19. You think the defense was a problem? Really? Really? You think you believe that? Nah. They schemed you up. What do you mean? I said, you turn around and give the ball to McCaffrey. Fine, he's getting 7-8 yards. You think they care? You didn't score any points. Yeah. You think they care if he gets 7 or 8? Then who doesn't get the ball? Samuel or Kittle? You had a 3-headed monster, and you used one because you got 7 to 8 yards, and you thought, oh, this is really working. No, kid, they wanted you to do it. It was kind of like we were playing Lincoln 3 years ago, and they lined up and got in that little bone thing and just kept marching the ball down the field. They started their 25 and ran 17 plays, and we stopped them at the 20. And everybody's losing their minds. They're mashing us. I said, whoa, hold on. They're not going to score. Because when you have a 17-play drive, chances are at some point you're going to get in the second long, third long, and then you're going to get out of this stuff and go back to what you do, and then we're going to get the ball back. We got to stop them now. Wait, this is like 8 minutes and one quarter. We can score 40 or 50 points at any time. What are we talking about? Sometimes you got to understand that You want the offense to move the ball or feel like they are, so it stops all these other weapons that they had because they feel like they're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It just
but the important thing, the important thing with defense, the important thing with defense is not as much as the stop as it is the bend but don't break.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter if somebody gets 500 yards in offense but they can't score but a field goal or two, you can't win. It's that red zone conversion that you've got to have.
No, it's true. It's like somebody says we have the number one passer and we've got the number one this and the number three this and all. Hell, if you don't win, it don't matter. Hell, nobody cares.
Give you a couple of comments. Richie said, "Just ask RG3 what happens when you see how quick to get out of the pocket."
God, what a good dude, man! He wore it.
And the thing of it is, he is another one that is small in stature that you can't do that. Mike said, Mike Self, even though I'm a Carolina fan, as I know, he's not sold on May. He has talent, but not sure he was a top 5 pick. Atlanta taking Penix is why they never win. In my opinion, that was a bad pick. Yeah, all picks are bad until you get through them and see. They either prove themselves to be right or wrong. Yeah. But, you look at it based on the information and the data that you have now. But I think Drake May has the talent too. I'm just not sure that it's going to translate, and you're going to have to see. I think for Drake May to be successful in the NFL, he's going to have to sit for a year. He's going to have to learn.
2 or 3.
If he can sit for at least a year.
He's 21 years old. Sit his rear end down for 2 or 3 years. Let me ask you this. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Boyd is the quarterback for the Packers now.
Jordan Love. Set for 3.
Can anyone definitively say that he was better than Drake May coming out of college?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think they say, well, they're both pretty close, or maybe a little better, maybe not. Maybe Drake's a little better. But they can't definitively say that Jordan Love is better than Drake May. You cannot say that.
Right.
How many years did he sit?
He sat 3.
Oh, well, bingo.
Yeah.
Okay, the problem is it's get me out there now. Get me out there now instead of, hey, you know what? I'm 21 years old. I've got a lot to learn. I know nothing about life, even though I've got life experience. Some. I know nothing about it yet. I've not had enough trials and tribulations, tough times, butt chewings in the film sessions, mistakes made with rush ends coming at me 1,000,000 miles an hour, inside linebackers that are just as fast now as any tailback in the league. Let me learn.
I agree.
Let me go through it. Let me go out with the first team on the 3rd preseason game. Let me experience that so I can truly measure and evaluate where I am.
Well, and that's what I'm saying.
This is crazy.
When you look at the teams that got the high draft picks, I think all of those teams are more than just a quarterback or a wide receiver away. You've got to have some development there. Why do you mortgage your whole future on the first year when the chances are slim that you're going to make that type of improvement? Why not allow those players to develop?
Because you're afraid of truth.
Well, the whole thing is
afraid of truth.
The whole thing is with players now.
Afraid of truth.
Everybody understands that they've got a window to win in. In that window, the teams that you've seen do it, Chiefs are the exception. You've got to make that win. You've got to make that big improvement when you've got a rookie quarterback deal because of the money. It allows you to put pieces around them so that they can get there. But there's still not a reason why you can't sit on a quarterback for a year and let him develop. You've got 5 years on that rookie deal.
If you want to make the turnaround, where do you see a rookie quarterback coming in for a turnaround of a team? You don't. It takes 3 or 4 years, like you're saying. What you see is Drew Brees leaving the Chargers and going to the Saints. Mm-hmm. You see Drew Stafford leaving Lions. Matt Stafford leaving the Lions, going to the Chargers. Just like you see Jared Goff leaving
go back to the Chiefs.
The Chargers. That's not right. The Rams going to the Lions.
Right.
That's the turnaround you see. You don't see it in a guy that's just come out from under center or in the gun, most cases, in college football.
Go back to Kansas City. they knew what they had in Patrick Mahomes, but they had a quarterback in Alex Smith that would allow them, and they didn't get impatient saying, we got to do it right now.
They all knew when the time – Andy Reid, Alex Smith, great example. They both said, we knew it was only a matter of time. We just didn't know when because we were trying to measure it. And then when he came out the second year in training camp, we're like,
where the Carolina Panthers really screwed up with Bryce Young, they would have been a more successful team last year had they started the Red Rocket.
Yes.
If they had just played Andy Dalton, Bryce Young, or Andy Dalton, neither one of them were taking the Carolina Panthers to the playoffs last year.
Correct.
So why do you squander what you did? Because the other problem that you had, and my guess would be that Harbaugh, I'm sorry, not Harbaugh, last year's quarterback, last year's coach that got fired at the Panthers,
Frank Reich.
Frank Reich would have been happier being able to play Andy Dalton.
We should have,
because it fit what he was doing, and give Bryce Young an opportunity to develop and learn, and not throw him to the fire from the very beginning.
You know, the thing that you can't teach is being 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
You can't teach that. That's what Drake May is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't teach that.
Mm-hmm.
Now he is equally or as tall as, 3 of the 5 offensive linemen that he's got up in front of him.
Mm-hmm. The only exception,
that's a big deal.
The only exception to that rule where you saw a quarterback, but I think it was because they had players around him, but the only place that you saw a first-year quarterback come in and change a franchise was the Houston Texans. First of all, C.J. Stroud came from Ohio State, so he is a little better equipped.
Yeah.
But they were that was a team that I don't think that they pressed it so hard. No. But they allowed him to develop a little bit.
Nobody expected them to do anything. Therefore, nobody really prepared for him because they were awful. They were in shambles. And he's got a pretty good let's see, the quarterback that's behind him, does he have a
Davis Mills?
And there's one more, Case
Keenum.
Yeah. He's got two really good quarterbacks to be in the room with that have a lot of life experience, a tremendous amount. And, to be able to help him, NFL experience as well, to be able to help CJ take it to the next level. There was no film on CJ. Now there is. We'll see how things go. They're not a surprise. Not taking anything away from him. He's a great young man, too. Mm-hmm. He is a great person to have in front leading your franchise.
But the other thing that they had Joe Mixon at running back, so they had a running game.
Incredible back.
They had Stephon Diggs at wide receiver, Nico Collins, so they had some players there that could play, and then they had a pretty good offensive line up front too. So that was kind of the exception. That's not the rule. That's not the way it normally works. But when you start looking at trying to make those huge differences in the first year, and one of the comments that came in, you're exactly right. I just got to see who said it. Richard, to answer your question, Aaron Rodgers set 3 years, if I'm not mistaken, behind Brett Favre. Milton said owners want to win now, no excuses. That's why they need to be owners and sign checks, because they don't know how that works.
Milton, that's a good point.
But that's right. But they can't figure out how it works. Yeah. Richie said this is why May will have to work on his footwork more. The only time he went under center was from high school. Through college, he was either a quarterback sneak, run, or handoff. Yeah. And so you got to, and it is different in the NFL. It's considerably different in the NFL. But, there are very few quarterbacks. Some of the ones that were taken early are going to have to play because they don't have any depth at quarterback. They don't have any choice.
Well, it's unfortunate.
Would Chicago have been better to keep Justin Fields?
Yeah. Well, I like the kid that was the backup. That was from that small school that played Chicago. The big tall kid that came in and played so well.
I don't remember who that was.
Yeah. I loved – I mean, that guy's – he's spot on.
So Brett Rippon was third string. Tyson Baguette was second string. I don't know those guys.
Click on his name and see where he's the boy that's from that smaller school. Shepherd, that's him.
6'3", 213.
All right, now he goes in. He's young, all right, but he goes in. He listens. He watches, makes the most of whatever. And I mean, the guy I think threw 7 or 8 interceptions.
He threw three touchdowns, 6 picks.
Yeah, sure.
Had 850 yards.
How many games?
Looks like he played in 6.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's NFL
5.
football.
5.
To throw that many passes and to only have 6 picks, one of them I think was tipped. No problem. It happens. But, I just – when you look at a thing from a process standpoint, when you look at things from that, and you're trying to build a winner, is your goal to be obviously win your division or at least qualify to playoffs so you have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl? Or is it to sell season tickets and jerseys? There's a lot of that going on, man.
Yeah.
The movie Draft Day explains it really well. Sonny, I need you to make a splash. Well, Sonny, wasn't all about that. Sonny was about building the team because the linebacker he wanted was a generational player, he felt, okay? And he knew he could keep the quarterback he had that was not popular but could run the coach's offense very well. Even though the boy was injured some, he came back. He was stronger than ever before. And then they were able to get the running back there. I mean, it was like this perfect scenario. You know how movies are, but it exposed a lot of the truth behind making a splash versus doing the right thing for the right reasons and building a champion inside your clubhouse. Lanny, there's no secret. You set the standard extremely high, and you hold everyone accountable to it, including yourself.
When you look at Detroit for just a second, Detroit was really, really close. Okay, they were second in passing yards. They were 5th in rushing yards. They were 5th in points for. But where they lacked was they were 23rd in points allowed. Okay, so. When you look at how they drafted, you see that they understood they had defensive needs. They put 2 cornerbacks.
The kid from Bama and the other kid from Missouri. 2 great corners.
Then they picked up an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Then they picked up a safety, a defensive Utah
State or
Utah,
yeah.
And then a defensive tackle out of LSU, and then an offensive guard out of Boston College.
Who did they get out of LSU? Was it the big
LSU?
Was it
Mika Wingo?
Wingo, that's
Wingo,
it. Yeah, he's a big dude, man.
Yeah, 6'1", 300.
He's a tank.
Yeah.
You can't move him.
So when you look at what they did, it at least appears that they tried to address. I've never been one from a franchise standpoint that, okay, I'm going to take the best player available. That doesn't work if you have specific needs. If you can't meet those needs through trades or something else, you don't have any choice but to draft.
And wide receiver, like if you were building a team, give me the first 5 positions. If you were just building from scratch, how would you do it? Let's go 5.
Okay,
let's do 5. All right, number 1, who would you do?
Number 1 would be quarterback for me.
All right, who's 2?
Left tackle.
All right, 3.
Edge.
All right, 4.
Corner.
All right, 5.
And then probably center.
All right, you ready for mine?
Okay.
All right, number 1 is edge.
Okay.
Number 2 is the tackle position that you had.
Okay.
3, all right, is corner. All right. 4 is quarterback. 5 is punter. 5 is punter. You say, well, why in the world would you get a punter? Because it's called field position.
Yeah.
All right. Listen to me. This is why they're changing the rules on the kickoff. They need the ball out by the 30, 35 instead of being taken to 25 as anybody score.
Yeah.
Field position. Field position. Your greatest coaches in NFL history had very good punters and very solid defenses. I didn't say your greatest team, said your greatest coaches.
When you start franchises, go back to the Panthers when they started. They brought a veteran kicker in for field goals because it was easier to score points with the field goal, and they had to have a solid punt game because of field position. Now, the other position on here, I might switch the center up. I may go with tight end because you need a possession receiver, a solid possession receiver.
You absolutely can.
I think you can make wide receivers. There's so many of them out there, and the way the college game has changed that I think you can do that.
So tight end is the secret position to the offense. The issue is when you're building a team, you've got to have that offensive lineman, whether it be that left or right tackle, depending on which arm your quarterback is, right?
Backside tackle.
Okay. All right. You got to have the edge rusher because you can't end up like, the Atlanta Falcons. Okay. You can't do that. You got to have sacks. Okay. You do need a quarterback, but I'm telling you, your corner position in the NFL it's your top 3. It may be your top 2. You've got to have great corners. And the reason I say that is not only because they cover, but because the ground they cover when the ball is loose outside the pockets. Your safeties are great, all that stuff. You've got to have great corners. You got to have lockdown, and
you got to have an all-purpose corner. You just can't have a coverage corner,
right? Which
because that
experience, right?
corner is so important to maintaining run control as well, especially in the NFL.
There's a kid that got drafted before the kid from Bama. This is a really good corner. It wasn't Missouri. It was another
in the draft overall.
Yeah, it was a really good corner, but there were 3. The top 3 corners are that kid, and then the 2 from Bama that are coming out that are so experienced. I'm talking about experienced, and will give you that. Will give you that.
The first corner off the board was Quentin Mitchell
that's it,
out of Toledo.
That's it. Yeah, that kid's remarkable. But what I'm saying is, all these points are valid. Now, once I started building my team, the next thing I would do in the draft is I would go get that future Gronk. And it's the guy that nobody really knows a lot about, but knows he's a pretty good player.
Brock Bowers, he was the first tight end off the board.
Lanny, I'm sorry, but if I'm Atlanta, that's the first guy I'm getting for Kirk Cousins.
Right. Well, here's the thing. This is the key phrase in the first line of his pre-draft analysis. Bowers is a tight end / receiver hybrid. Okay? So that means he's a tight end that can run the tight end position.
Yep.
He can block, but you can also move him out there to that slot like we talked about that makes your defense make some adjustments.
He's so strong, too.
Yeah.
That
6'3", 240.
The only thing that I would have liked to have seen is somebody like a Gronk, the 6'6", 6'7". Like that is, and you can't have that because they're so few and far between.
Right.
But that is the ideal because of separation that can be created. Right? It's not hard to cover somebody smaller than you, but when you get those hybrid tight ends out on corners that are not as big, or better yet, not a lot of times corner safeties that are not as big as they are, it creates all kinds of problems. Definitely on the linebacker mismatches, right?
Yep.
There's just so many different dynamics that go into this that it's just puzzling.
But it still has to be an evaluation that you have based on the players you have on your roster, and how do you elevate those players which will elevate the team.
This is the problem, I think. Evaluation versus narrative.
Right.
It's almost like you talk yourself into doing this.
Right.
Because, and again.
You can justify anything with enough time.
Truth is what comes through. Truth comes through, and it comes to the top. And you can't, we see it play out in everyday life. We see it in sports. This is the number 1 pick, surefire, slam dunk.
There are no number 1 surefire,
slam dunk, and all this. And the bottom line is, you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's not a crapshoot because you're trying to do analysis. But the problem is, what is your narrative behind what you're trying to do? Is your narrative truly a narrative, or is it truth?
When you
right, and that's why this thing with I do not understand, and I've said this all show. I just don't understand why the Falcons would do that. And you know what? I'm not in a room with them. I'm out here with you. I don't do this for a living. But you know what? I do work with, similar financial situations.
Right.
Okay.
That those decisions are based on analysis and what you feel like is the best fit for what you're trying to get to.
What you're doing.
Yeah.
And I, when I'm looking at building something, I don't build it off of style.
Right.
I build it off of substance. 100% off of substance.
Are you here Thursday?
Yeah.
All right. We need to dig a little bit deeper into that. And what is the criteria that you use when you start analyzing a player and how it fits your system, how it fits the NFL, and we'll look at some of those picks.
There's 5 criteria. I'll go with you on Thursday.
Okay.
5.
Don't miss it. Thursday. We'll be here. Have a good one.